Hello, I'm Helen and I'm here with Andrew Sleath from Next Technik, the developers of the field service management solution Next Service. Andrew, thank you for joining us here today. And Next Service is, I think it's fair to say, revolutionising how field service management companies operate, not just in terms of profitability, but also in terms of health and safety, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But firstly, can you talk to me about the challenges that field service companies face on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, okay. They're the same problems that have faced them forever, but now in an ocean of regulation. Okay, so let's call them challenges. What's challenge number one? You've got to get Joe and Jill to the place that they're supposed to go. You've got to know that Joe and Jill can go to the place that they need to go. Right? Are they busy? Were they supposed to be doing something else? When Joe and Jill get to that place, what are they going to do? You know, you can't expect Joe and Jill to have memories that extend from for the entire year. They've got to know what they're doing. Now, we're not teaching Joe and Jill their skills. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. We're not going to teach them how to be an engineer because they've already done that. They've already done all their training. Well, what you've got to do is you've got to get them there and give them some basic instruction. When did the customer want you to do a specific thing? Were you going to install something? That'd be different from if you're going to do some maintenance on it. Installing this 1-ton machine might take 3 people, 4, and a forklift, but maybe one person just to check the gauges when you're doing a little bit of detail on the maintenance. So the challenges for a field service company are about coordinating the human people that work for them into a place where they've got clear instruction on what it is they're supposed to do. On top of that, there are your regulations and checklists, and I know that you're going to cover that with me later on. So there's that. You know, the last I found out, you know, globally, we exchange services for money. So you've got to get paid, right? That's how the world works. So that's the challenge. How do you get paid on time? And then on top of that, you've got to worry about what it's costing you. How long were Joe and Jill doing that thing and not that job over there? That's a huge challenge. And without a centralized system that has what you're paying Joe and Jill, what Joe and Jill actually cost per hour, and that's not what you're paying them, by the way. That is their leave and their days off and and all the other bits and pieces. You know, all the overheads that you've got to amortize into that individual, who's also a human, right, and very valuable to you. This asset that's trained and works for you. What are they worth per hour? You've got to look at that cost per hour, and you've got to say, okay, we do these significantly technical things usually in critical infrastructure, and we've got to bill for it, and we've got to work out how much to bill for it, and we can't do that unless we know exactly what our costs are. Otherwise, we're guessing. Now, the challenge I have seen globally throughout the Asia Pacific, North America, and here in Europe, the challenge for a lot of, if not all, field service companies is knowing what the costs actually are. Many people, companies guess, and they guess well, because if they didn't, they'd all be out of business. Yeah, they guess kind of well, but they don't guess. You're guessing. It's not exact. It's 2023. We've got computers now. We've got these things called ERPs, you know, enterprise resource planning software platforms that do everything for your business, so all your financials, all your inventory, and your people, and zipping them off into the field. So the real problem / challenge for companies that want to not sustain the amount of business that they're getting in these challenging business times today, but want to grow, is you can't do that if you don't know. You can't, where are you making the most money? where are you making a loss on jobs? If you're not connecting the amount of time that Joe and Jill spent doing this to what you're actually charging and you're guessing, you can't grow the business because you don't know exactly where the money's coming from. That's the challenge. So you got to get your people out into the field. They got to do stuff. They got to do stuff that you need to where you got to give them reminders and checklists, because you can't expect them to have extended memories that go on forever. You got to help them, and then somehow in amongst all of this, you got to make money and you got to grow. And the real challenge in my mind is the growth element. How are these businesses going to grow? Because you're not going to do it on a whiteboard. How many names can you fit on a whiteboard? Like 10? What if you want to have 12 people? You got to buy another whiteboard. No, that's not good enough. You want to think about what it is that you're doing, and are you thinking to revolutionise the way that you're running that business?
And are companies really doing something as basic as that, as trying to manage everything on a whiteboard or on a spreadsheet, sticky notes, that kind of thing? Is it? Are they really trying to?
I answer that question with the greatest respect to all people that do, and do well, and then pay their staff and put bread on their tables. Good for you, but you can do better. And if you've got spreadsheets, until I think the mid-90s, there are a lot of companies running on Excel, right? And why not? It's a fantastic bit of software, but it sits there. It doesn't talk to what Joe and Jill are up to. The whiteboard isn't going to tell Joe and Jill's cell phone where they've got to go. You can text them, and out they go, and they get to the job, and the customer's happy. But what happens if Joe and Jill forget to go to one of the jobs? You won't know. The whiteboard isn't talking to Joe and Jill. The whiteboard's not tracking Joe and Jill. The whiteboard can't show you where Joe and Jill are on the map. And at the end of the day, if you don't have a system that is, and this isn't draconian, this is just basic stuff, team management. You want to help them. If they forgot to do something, I forget to do stuff every day. If somebody forgets to do something, say, hey, I can see in the system here that you forgot to go out to the university yesterday and check the alarm panel for the fire alarm. No problem. You can do it tomorrow. Yep, I'm on it. Reschedule the job, send them out. Whiteboard's not going to do that. So in the context of the whiteboard, Joe and Jill forget to go and check the fire alarm panel, and everybody forgets, and then there's a problem. We need dramatic music for this. Right? That's really bad. That stops you sleeping at night time. If that was my business, I'd never sleep. So I'm kind of glad that I'm working in a business that has evolved software, that if I was a field service business and I had those sorts of worries at night time, I would never sleep. The anxiety that would cause. But if you know you have a system where each morning you can see on a dashboard, this didn't get done. Let's have a quick chat. Yeah, they're on whiteboards. Yeah, they're using spreadsheets. And yeah, that works. And good luck to them. But it's not really efficient. Again, in that ocean of regulation. Yeah.
So NetService, which sits on NetSuite, is basically that. It's almost like a safety net for companies to make sure they do everything right and to do it well. And obviously see profitability from that as well then. Very much so.
So, I wonder if anybody listening to this is even going to believe it, because this might be unimaginably good news for some folks that are listening. You got a system, you've got NetSuite, which is a financial system, it's an inventory system, it's a warehouse management system. You've got your employees in there, then it's a CRM, you've got your customers, the contacts for them, their address, all that stuff. I mean, you can run your business on it. But then you can also put in your field service solution, which is Next Service, which the company I work for is responsible for, and it all just plugs together. It's not attached by some API, application programming interface for anybody that wants to Google it. Right? It's not attached, it's all just together in the one system. Okay, so you mentioned profitability. I mean, we're going to talk about safety and everything in a minute, right? But profitability. Okay, what if, imagine this, just imagine, what if you send John and Jill out to a job? In fact, what if Jimmy, who started yesterday with your company, your company's 25 years old, Jimmy started yesterday, and a lot of the people that you got on the service desk have had about 7 years experience. But Jimmy started yesterday. What happens if you can employ Jimmy and he sits down and somebody says, hey, I need somebody to come out here and help with this. I've got a red light on the generator under the hospital that powers up the operating theatres if the power goes down so that people's kidney operation can continue. Right? Kind of critical infrastructure, heavily regulated. There's a red light on. There's no power failure, but there's a red light. Somebody's got to go out and do something. And for anybody that does do generators, if there isn't red lights, I apologise. Now, I'm just, Okay, so Jimmy says, yeah, I'm going to send somebody out. Just, where are you again? Oh, yeah, good, I got it. You can see the generator. You can press a button, and up comes a job sheet that grabs the generator and says, yeah, okay, so it's at the hospital, and this is your contact at the hospital, and this is your generator serial number, and when do you want somebody out there, and how many people do you want to go, and what instructions do you have, Jimmy? Now, it's his first day. There's a red light on the panel. That's what the customer's telling me on the phone right now. Great, that's in there. What else do you need to know? Nothing. The customer, the hospital, the facilities management manager says, well, can you get out here today? Sure. Here's a schedule board. John and Jill are free in 3 hours. It's going to take them an hour to get to you. We can get them there by 2 p.m. Or how about we just do it at 8 a.m. the next day? That's fine. Boink, boink. John and Jill are allocated. Press button. Jimmy didn't have to think. Jimmy just had to communicate. What's going to happen next is that Jimmy says you're going out there to fix the generator. That then flags to a system that you need the fix-it checklist, not the install checklist. It also tells him who was available, so he can, oh yeah, they're good, so that's good. Jimmy didn't have to know all the mechanics that go on underneath to make sure that by the time when they get to the hospital, they don't forget to do the checklist for the job safety, right? Because that's automatically going to go up because it knows from the company's own instruction that a job safety analysis has to be done before they get allowed to go over the generator and start playing around with 450 volts, which could kill them. So that's done. And Jimmy doesn't even know what a JSA is because he doesn't need to, because the system's going to do that for you because you've got all this stuff in place because it's been regulated for decades. And now with a single unified system, and we're going to get to profitability, deep breath everybody, right? With a single unified system, you can allocate your team. You know what their costs are. You know where they're going and how long. If it's under warranty, the system should tell Jimmy it's under warranty. Don't bill for this. Don't create a sales order. And yet, if they go out and have to use any parts, we need to take the costs for those parts. And so whilst Jimmy was there, whilst Joe and Jill were there, they used these $300 parts. You sold the generator 3 months ago. It's still under warranty. So you're not going to get any money for that. So it should look at the actual initial sale of the generator and say, you sold it for €150,000. You made this much profit on it after you installed it. and all the time and everything else that's costing, all the time has gone against all the stuff. But we're also shaving off another $700 in parts from the sale of that, so that you know that you didn't make $75,000 profit on it. You made $74,300 on it now, because that just got shaved off. There is an ongoing balance here. Just because you installed it once doesn't mean you forget about it and you don't worry about what you made there. That could change if you've got to go out and do some work under warranty. So profitability now is this ongoing calculation against the asset that you installed and how much time you have to spend on it, and it's to the cent. And how many extra account staff do you need to employ to do that? None, because your ERP, NetSuite with Next Service, that is going to do it all for you. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, that seems like a lot of accountants, I'm going to have to employ 20 more people. You don't have to do nothing. In fact, this is what you do. Nothing. Because there's nothing to do. Because it's all been calculated for you. This is why you buy these systems. Go ahead.
It's so powerful for a business. Have you spoken to them and heard the impact that it's had on their business?
Very much. So what are we getting? We're getting 20% more efficiency. Why? How did you do that? Thank you, Mr. Customer, for telling us that you became 20% more efficient with allocating work to people. How? I mean, there's no magic wand here. This isn't Disneyland. I mean, I want to hear good information about the software, but I don't want it to be fantastical. How do they get 20% more efficiency? Because now you know where everybody's at. You can see them on a map. Why? Because every time they touch the little mobile app, it pings their geolocation to a system. You see them on a map. They're there. But you can also see everything they're doing this week, next week, the week after that, when they've got holidays, so you don't accidentally allocate stuff to them. If you can do that, and you see where they're at on a map, and you know where they live, then you can bring the jobs closer together. On a whiteboard, and then a spreadsheet which doesn't talk to the whiteboard, that's very difficult. Even with 5 people, I would find it difficult. I think some people have problems organising their kids. I mean, because everything else is going on, because this is the world that we live in. You shouldn't have to worry about it if there's a machine that can tell you with pinpoint accuracy exactly what time somebody's going to should have been out of place and when they should have left. So now you can squeeze your jobs together. If you look at, that job's there, I can see that job on the map. I can see this one's only 5 kilometres away. It's going to be 30 minutes to get there. Let's give them 30 minutes. I can put you on this one, and this one today. So you can become more efficient with your allocation. No one ought to have learnt anymore. You shouldn't have to employ 20% more people to allocate the jobs, because that's just dragged from here to here. Right? Or look at the schedule board and create the job and allocate it to them. Right? That should all just be automatic. So the efficiencies you're going to get are from the absolute knowledge of where everything is at. And yeah, that happens a lot. We get a lot of that. We also get a lot of people thanking us for giving them the ability to see exactly how much money they're making, as we said before, on particular stuff. Look, it is not uncommon for people to look, and I would, to look at every type of work you do on the type of machinery that you're working on. Fire alarms. How often do we go out? Why is this model breaking down more than all these other models? What happens when you can see that? And what happens if you've got a system that says, hey, when you went out on site and you looked at this aspect, and that aspect of what you were doing, now give us an overall safety rating of the site today. What happens if you get people consistently saying, this site's unsafe? If you do that on a PDF or a piece of paper, you could go back in a year's time and say, well, no, this was unsafe. They said it wasn't quite safe and they had to wear protective gear or whatever. What happens if you want to do some analysis on it? You can't. But now you can. Now you can look at every single job where anybody ever said that they were unsafe and look for patterns in that information. Why? To make your staff safer. Why? To decrease the risk of anything happening to them whilst they're on site. We're going to get to that in a minute. All right? You want the system to make you more efficient in the way you allocate your teams and more efficient in the way that you look about the information that you have. How? Because now you've got the information that you never had before. You couldn't have done it unless you had 60 people in a room, which is probably illegal, right? Running through papers, comparing stuff together. That's what they invented computers and operating systems for. That's why they invented, thankfully, Oracle NetSuite invented, the Oracle NetSuite ERP. And that's why we got involved with that and built our field service software directly in it, so you could join all those dots. So if I had to summarise the answer to my question now, you get more efficient because you know everything. And you know everything because it's all been marked down in the field. You can't not know how long people were there. You can't not get them to fill out their checklists. We're not going to show them how to fix the machine, but we're going to get them across the line so that all the paperwork is done, because there's no paper, on a little device, which is, PhD. Push here, dude. You didn't even talk to it. If you want to type a paragraph, don't type. Right? Big fat fingers, don't type. Right? Press the little microphone button and talk into it. And the voice to text now, even with Australian accents, it's really good. Bang, 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 bang. You might have to you might have to spell check one word or correct another word, but it ought to be done for you. So take it. I want companies to be more efficient by taking advantage of the systems that are now readily available, which they may not even be aware of. Again, if somebody's listening to this and is lying awake at night time, not able to sleep because they really don't know what their profitability is, that is outrageous. If you can't point at a job and say, I honestly don't know how much money I'm making, but we are profitable. I don't know how much money on that job, but we're profitable. That's outrageous, because you should know. But that world is gone. And as the years go by, people are going to pick up on this and they're all going to jump onto that platform, right? Profitability in real time, safety in real time for my staff. They're all going to jump on that. I mean, I would.
And it's so easy as well. I mean, from the technician's perspective, obviously they don't want to be dealing with very complicated software, but it's just simply a case of
if you can read
on a phone
and scroll,
or, yeah.
if you can do this and read, it's going to, and it tells you what to do. And when to do it, and when not to do stuff. For example, you got to fill out the let's just say you get John and Jill get there and they got to do a safety inspection. Great. The only form that's available for them to fill out is a safety inspection. We're not going to let them fill out their time and what they did whilst they were there until they've done that first. And John and Jill both want to get paid, so they're going to fill out the safety inspection. Now, we can't force them to read the question. In the same way that you can't force someone to look up and look at the stop sign saying, don't walk. Yeah, right? But most people, given that there are 7 billion of us on the planet these days, most people are smart enough to look up. Most people do want to do the right thing, I think. And most people are going to read the questions and be thankful that when they wake up in the morning, they had to remember nothing. They've already got their education and their skills as technicians and engineers. That's in their head. They have to know nothing. Just look, read, tap, push here, do. Right? It'll tell you when to be there, where to go, what you've got to do, who to speak to, what telephone number to ring if you need to. It's very often a picture of the machine you're going to work on or the place you're going to go. It doesn't have to be a machine. We've got people using our software to remind them to go out and teach other people how to use equipment. They're teachers. So just get there and do these things. And remember these following comments. Don't forget to take your security tag because you're going in to fix a computer in a bank and they tend to not like you just walking past security. Tends to get you sort of in America, you don't want to do that, right? In any bank, you don't want to do that, right? So, and here's the message from Mum. Don't take your lunch and don't forget your government ID. Great. Now, sure, in order for a business to automate everything, you've got to look at all your variables and enter them into the system. How much does stuff cost? What do we charge this customer instead of that customer because they buy more from us? Do they have special pricing? What kind of different services do we even offer? But you only do that once. There's this summons from a large system. Not even a large system. There's a summons from a system that promises to do everything for you, and that is you need to tell us everything. You don't need to be a programmer. You just need to answer questions about what it is you do so that we can then automate that for you. So that's another challenge for businesses. Do they think they've got the time and resource to commit to that? But if you don't, your competition will. All right? Disruption. All we ever hear about these days is disruption. Well, this stuff is disruptive because it's much better than what you got. I'll tell you something else. By and large, the vast majority of people who are using field service software do it on a platform that's not connected to their financial software. So yeah, all software is going to get somebody to a job, and all of it's going to allow for you to take a photograph, and all of it's going to, maybe give you a PDF to fill out. That's nice. But if it's not talking to this over here, then you're not a disruptor. You're not using stuff. You're not going to make your life any easier by doing that. You need to connect it all together. And it is virtually impossible to do with a system that wasn't built for your financial system in the first place. Because if I was a software developer and somebody said to me, hey, go build a field service platform, do you think I'd be worried about special pricing for customers or how inventory works in a warehouse management system? No. The only thing you'd be thinking about when you wrote that software is, well, I'm going to get people out to do stuff, take pictures, fill out forms. So they're not going to be interconnected, and you won't be able to you can't map a field of information from, say, inventory, from serialized inventory, which means that this particular $100,000 laser beam, which has this serial number, right, when it is sold, right, should automatically create an asset for itself at the customer you sold it to. That's not going to happen. Why? Because the field service management lives over here somewhere. It has no notion of the laser beam that you've just sold out of inventory. Sure, you can go and repunch it in. So here's the deal. Imagine that your company does sell assets. Fire alarms, fire extinguishers, generators, laser beams that cut through metal, industrial laser beams, electron microscopes that are used by the CIA and the FBI and all those other groovy sort of organisations, right? Imagine you sell that stuff. And after you've sold it, you've got to go over to another system and say, oh yeah, I just sold this and I'm just going to enter all that in. And I'm going to enter the serial number in while I'm at it. But serial numbers, how do you spell a serial number? How do you spell a barcode? You don't. And where does human error come in? Entering serial numbers and barcodes. You are going to make mistakes. Even if you're a 98% kind of girl or guy and you get high distinction at university, you got a PhD, push you dude, right? You're going to make 2% of mistakes. And those 2% of mistakes are then going to go out to this system, and it's not going to know about what the real serial number was of the machine that you actually sold, and sooner or later, that's going to need a service or it will get lost. And it won't get a service, and it will break down, and it better not be a critical piece of equipment. But what happens if you sell it and the asset builds itself? Serial number, description, make, model, everything else, It just creates itself at the customer on site that you sold it to and then says, oi, you need to install me. Little Jimmy can do that on day one.
So all of that insight is, obviously it's powerful for the businesses, but it's also powerful for the consumer, the ordinary person walking around doing their business who assumes that all of this maintenance and monitoring is done and never gives it a second thought. So tell us a bit about the societal implications of the software.
Wow, good question. Okay, let's go into a supermarket or a university or a school where you send your children or you go yourself and you walk around and you sit down and you learn something, or you walk around and you don't sit down and you have a shopping cart and you pull stuff off the shelf. All right, these are sealed boxes. And you would expect, whilst in that sealed box, to have delivered to you air and be kept warm, because I know Ireland gets cold, and where I came from, my last place I was living was Denver in Colorado, and it drops down to minus 24 degrees Celsius. Sorry, any Americans, I can't remember what that is in Fahrenheit. It gets cold. I don't want to walk into a supermarket and freeze, and I don't want to walk into a supermarket and have stale air, which never happens. And I don't want to walk into a supermarket and have the lighting fail. And I don't want to walk into a supermarket and have to think about, will this catch fire? We don't do that because we know that buildings won't catch fire because they've got alarms and fire extinguishers. And if there was any problems, we'd hear the alarm, we run out. We don't worry about it being cold or hot because we have heating, ventilation and cooling systems which take care of that for us. And even if they're not heating or cooling, they're bringing in a supply of air from outside because there are regulations which have been developed by industry and government over decades because we've been living in boxes for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Right? We don't want the supermarket to smell like a cave. We've gone past that. So we've got regulations about how these buildings are built, the stuff that has to be built into them so that you and me can walk around and never have to think about a safety when we get into that lift that takes us to the 50th floor. I mean, think about that. Or we get on the escalator, which takes you through 100 metres in the underground, right? Or where the air comes from in the underground. But that stuff doesn't just magically, again, this isn't Disneyland, that stuff just doesn't magically happen. People don't walk around in a very big city like London or Dublin or New York or Sydney, Australia. They don't walk around in these cities and go to malls, or Dubai, where it's 50 degrees Celsius outside. You don't walk around and worry about, I wonder if this one's going to break down. So no one even thinks about that because of the regulations that go into building them. Now, that means that men and women and men, have to put systems into those buildings or those places in a way that passes muster with regulations for what they're doing. That means they need to install things. So let's start to go back to the field service component of it. We'll use the shopping mall, because I think everyone can, in my mind, I'm at the shopping mall and there's an escalator, right? Up you go to the second floor, third floor, fourth floor. They got to be installed. By whom? Well, by people that sell escalators, one would imagine, or lifts. Or fire alarm systems. The guys that install, the people that install escalators don't do fire alarm systems because that's not their skill. They're the escalators. So they're going to install those. And they've got to work all day, every day, and not mash anything up or cause anybody any harm. So the escalator companies sell them and they install them as the building is being erected, and then the fire alarm systems, people come in afterwards and they put in the master panel here, and then the nodes here, the detectors, and then all the other bits and pieces that go around having a full fire alarm and fire extinguishing system in a building which is 50 floors, which has 3,500 people either work in it or 500,000 people move in and out every day to go and buy stuff. 500,000 people, that's a lot. So there's a lot of regulation, and the regulations work because we are safe. They work for the general public, and they work because people know what they're supposed to do, and they work because in field service management, you give them notice about what they need to remember to do in order to install something in a way that, again, will pass muster for regulations. Now, what happens if during an installation of a building that people walk in and out of, what happens if they forget to do something? Well, probably when it gets inspected, the bit that you did will fail and you've got to go back. So visit number 2, costs that you weren't, so that adds cost to your bottom line. So if you are using a fully integrated system like the one I'm talking about, if you are a disruptor, you'll know that you had to go back again. At least you're going to make a record of the fact that you went back. So we're talking about health and safety, regulations, because regulations give us our health and safety in public spaces. So now you've gone back again. But a lot of people won't know they went back again and they won't remember because they've got off-platform systems. So you're going to have extra costs for failure. That is without doubt. But you can mitigate the risk of failure to comply by giving someone a checklist they need to go through and prompting them to take a photograph and forcing that user that we're not going to let you press the green checkbox or tick box until you've taken a photograph. So the software can go, no. I'm not allowed to do that because I just touched the microphone. The software can say, no, you're not going any further. I have to have the picture and I have to have it now. There's nothing wrong with that. I've yet to see a grown adult argue with it. Argue with a checklist. All right, so there's nothing wrong with it. Sure, it's a burden of work that the technician has to do, but everybody gets used to it, and it's for the good of themselves and also the general public. So now you've got a checklist that's telling you to do the things that you're supposed to do. Yes, no boxes, drop-down lists with checks. Is it this, or this? And if it's this, that's bad, right? If it's this, that's good. If it's this, maybe you need to send someone back the next day. Let's do that now rather than risk it failing. Let's get a photograph before, let's get a photograph afterwards, and then let's post that all in our list, and then there is very little chance, there's much less chance of you having to return to the scene of the forgetfulness. Okay? By not forgetting all the many bits and pieces of the regulations that you're supposed to know. And the electrician's handbook in Australia is like this thick. Right? It's this thick. It's called the AS 3000, I think. And it's got pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of regulation. I defy anyone to remember all that stuff. And that's just for wires, single phase and 3-phase wiring. What happens? So what about heating, ventilation and cooling? What about X-ray machines? What about health monitors in hospitals? Little beep beep thing that goes here. That's got a monitor. That's checking your pulse and blood oxygen. And these are vital things. I don't know what the regulations are around them, but they're there. How do you, in health and safety, mitigate the risk of forgetting to do something where you've got so many regulations they're impossible to remember? You're supposed to. The law in some cases requires that you know of them. We give them a checklist. For this job that you're doing right now, You'll need to do this and this and this. You don't have to worry about the other 2,785 pages. This job requires just this bit. Yep, no, yep, that's good, and there's the photograph. Fantastic. Whilst everything else is being monitored, like we know that John and Jill are on site because they've both gone into the app to say, I want to start work, and we geolocated them. And then told the person, the scheduler, that they're there. So the scheduler can look at the board and go, they're on site. That's good. And you send an email out to somebody if you want. Right? We're prompting for Jill and John to make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to when they're installing or maintaining equipment in a public space. We're prompting them because they're humans, and we're all, as humans, we can make mistakes. And a mistake is also forgetting. You can forget that. So think of it this way. Let's put yourself in John and Jill's position where they've got to put in 50 smoke detectors in a university today. And they're cabled to an alarm system. 1, check. 2, I'm going to forget something. Unless that box says, no, you're not doing the next fire smoke detector until you've pressed this button. I forgot to do that, but no, I didn't. So, a mistake could just be forgetting. And if you can't forget because a device tells you that you can't move forward and do the next one until you've done this, then we're helping them not have to go back, so it costs to the business. We're helping them ensure that regulations are met. We're helping them install and create the safety systems that go into these buildings which keep everybody healthy and happy and never have to worry about whether or not that building is going to do us harm. I walked into this strange building this morning and I didn't for 1 second think that I was going to come to any harm because these systems are in place. Field service systems are about your technicians in the field and helping them be the best they can by helping them not to forget things and by helping them to remember to protect themselves.
And from your perspective then, obviously you were involved in the development of Next Service. How rewarding is it? Obviously there's that huge health and safety aspect of it, but also having businesses telling you how transformational it's been for their companies. How rewarding is it for you to have built this and to be bringing it to businesses?
Very, very, because our customers, when they see the net result of all of their effort. I mean, it's a team effort on their part. They've got to come and they've got to grab all the different resources within their business that, including the lead technicians. That you got to get their input. You got to get everybody's input to get this right. Because if you haven't got everything into a central system yet, you don't know. I mean, do we define everything? Do we have a 3,000-page manual on our business? No. We don't. So we're going to have to get our teams together to put this, to get all the information that we need so that we can automate our business and offer these systems. The rewards are, it's amazing for them, and they sing very high praise for us because they see that they come back to us with the efficiency figures. We can't pluck them out of nowhere. They aren't dreamt up. They're on our website, by the way, case studies. We can't pluck them out. We're software developers. We build software called Next Service and we put it into NetSuite. The actual people at the coalface are the ones that are going to tell you what efficiencies there are. We had one customer tell us that they started doing some analysis on a part or a device that was failing, and it popped up, it cropped up, and they kept seeing it, and so they ran some numbers, And because this system was able to give them all the numbers of every time they touched it and every time this particular thing had failed, they were able to then go to the manufacturer in Germany and say, this looks like there's an issue. We're picking this up. We've got digital evidence to say this is happening multiple times. International recall. International recall of this part thing. Who does that? And we built the software that enabled them to do that. And it's just what's rewarding for customers if they start asking questions about themselves, they find out revelatory information about what they're doing too. Because there's no question you can't answer with data. Anyone will tell you that. I think people are used to hearing it from sort of, statisticians or accountants, and it's all very boring, and that's not part of my day-to-day. It is part of your day-to-day if that affects your capacity to grow, your capacity to make yourself sticky with your customer. Isn't it great when you never forget to go and do a maintenance service? Now, I can't remember the last time somebody at a university was over there standing next to a fire extinguisher because today is the day they do the maintenance and they're tapping their foot waiting for the technician. That doesn't happen.
You'd worry if it did.
People don't remember that. You've signed a contract with the company that's going to provide that service and just assume they're going to go out whilst you're teaching mathematical modelling in the next room. That fire extinguisher is the least of your concerns. But if you always go out and check it, or if you always go out and check Mr. Smith's air conditioner twice a year and it's always working, Mr. Smith's going to love you. If you never forget, and if you always go on the Wednesday, because he said you've always got to come on the Wednesdays because Wednesdays I'm home, and your company is the company that always has Mr. Smith go out, and you never miss that. And anyone listening that has had tradespeople that haven't turned up, I just question this. If your business is providing a service where you're guaranteed to turn up, that's got to make you more sticky. And that means you're worth more to a customer and they're less likely to leave you. And they're more likely to tell their friends. Now, word of mouth, is it word of mouth anymore? Well, have you heard of social media? Right? Yeah, there's death by social media. And there's also notoriety through social media. So yeah, if you got a system that enables you as a company to be really responsive and really accurate, then what percentage do you increase your value? And this is the information that I get back from customers. Right? They don't say specifically that, but you can draw some lines there. And certainly efficiencies in scheduling, human resource, for companies, many of which, not all, but many of which only make money, only put food on the table by charging for the services that their team deliver as field service professionals. They don't sell a generator. They don't sell this. They don't do wholesale distribution and make money from the initial sale or something. Some people just do servicing. So if you've got sticky customers and you're really good at it and you're very accurate, then that's your lifeblood taken care of, and you can grow and you can know that your customers are getting serviced and you can know that your customers are going to like you, love you, appreciate you, at least that. And this is what's rewarding. This is getting this information back from people who are confident now that they have set themselves up to grow, and certainly set themselves up in a position that's better than their competition. Right? There's not just one company doing fire alarms in the world. There's not just one company installing lifts. There's not just one company servicing buildings for. Heating and cooling systems. There's not one, there's plenty of them. So what are you going to do to make sure that your business is able to have a chat, after they've installed everything and say, wow, this actually did work? A single unified system with everything in it, so that I've got this analysis, so I can make sure, so I can look at a list that says, you didn't see Mr. Smith yesterday. He was expecting you. So you can make the phone call, sorry, can we come there on Thursday? Yeah, sure, thanks for proactively calling me. That's nice. Again, proactive calls from service companies, that's a big deal. People love that. Now you can do that because all the information's there for you.
Well, what a wonderful tool, and hopefully you will see an end to businesses using whiteboards.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. But I would hope that businesses that are using whiteboards continue to do well and prosper, but think about how they're going to grow in the future and what tools they might use to help them so that they can sleep at night times.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I'm sure you're sleeping well at night time, helping so many businesses to...
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.